We do have time for a Q&A, so if you have a question, please let me know. I probably will repeat the question just so everybody can hear it. But ask away. They're like here for you. Yes.
I noticed those of you who are not in media res, you've got books in your hand, real books with beautiful covers. And I just thought you might comment on that. I can make a million comments, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. Books, not screens.
About, you mean like what the covers look like?
I'm talking about the fact that these are still books in an era when everybody reads seems elsewise, and when the book as the object doesn't seem to have the same veneration it did. I notice this isn't true of you each. You've got books that look beautiful to hold and that seem like objects of worth.
So I think. Yeah, I think her question is about, yeah, it's kind of a question where you're asking for a commentary on what's your opinion on physical books versus e-book.
Okay.
I'm good at paraphrasing.
That's wonderful. What's your job?
That's your job. She's just awesome. Okay, I can start with that. Okay, so yeah, I do like the physical book. I like to hold something in my hand, but I also do like ebook. And I think that the best part about an ebook is that you can be anywhere and you can get it. And that is what I like about ebook. It's so convenient. And because of that, I sell lots of those. So I also like to hold the book, and I like to sign the book, and but I think that if I had to favor one or the other, I really couldn't. I really enjoy both of them. For this particular reading, I read from the book. Usually I actually read from a piece of paper that I print out. So I think it's just really today it was just the author's preference and what they were most comfortable with reading. But between the two, I really can say one or the other. I really like them both.
I will say that when I come to a con, I expect there's going to be a dealer's room, and there are going to be nice people there who are selling real books. Whereas if you wanted an e-copy, which I read a lot of e-books, you go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and then you don't patronize the nice people who are wherever they are selling. So when I come to a con, I try to make a point of saying, this is the book, and you can go wherever the nice booksellers are to give them some money.
Speaking from a publisher standpoint, since I work there, and I've worked there long enough to know that a time when there wasn't an ebook industry, and so when that started to come up, when the ebooks really started to get a foothold, there was a lot of concern that they were going to disrupt the market and that paper books somehow were going to disappear or be less valued or be less desired, and we haven't seen that really to be true. There was people still love to buy books in any form, and that from a publisher standpoint, that's great. We want to sell you the book however you want to consume it, because we just want you to give us the money for it. And we're in the business of selling books. That's what we do. So people who like ebooks, we love them because they buy the ebooks. People who love print books, we love them because they buy the print books. And when it comes to reading, you're not competing against format. You're competing against everything else that's taking time away from reading. So you're competing for people who they have to work and do their laundry and go to the grocery store, and they want to go to the movies, and maybe they play games, and they've got a family to raise, and there's 1,000 things that take up your time. And so whatever minutes or hours you can carve out to devote to reading, we want to provide you the easiest way to read the book that you want to read.
I think for me, it's a very personal preference between ebook and print. Further to what Lisa was just saying, I was also monitoring the ebook market for over a decade now, and I think it was 2012 when they were saying that ebooks had surpassed print in sales, and recently in the last year or two, print has come back in a way that it has surpassed ebooks again. And so I personally have always been a print. I do read ebooks. I was traveling for 4 years through Europe and it was very difficult to carry hundreds of books in my suitcase. So I did go to ebooks, and I still read ebooks, but 90+% of mine is in print, and I prefer it. So if I'm going to do a reading, I always bring print. It's just a preference. It's personal. But at the end of the day, in addition to what several have said here, several of the fellow attendees here, it is a business at the end of the day. And so I heard comments on money a couple of times. And so if a reader does want an ebook, all of mine and everyone else are available in ebook. And I encourage that. And I have nothing against ebooks whatsoever. And I do enjoy them. I just prefer print.
Especially audiobooks.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Any format we can.
People can have when they are doing other things. Or
Yes, driving the car, whatever, any format, we would love to offer. But personally, I will always bring a book to a reading. That's just even if the print goes out of print, I'll always have a copy decades later.
And I'll just comment as a children's author, especially as a picture book author. The one area where I don't think ebooks will ever fully catch on is picture books. And that is such a tactile lap experience, children's typically first exposure to stories. And all of my picture books are traditionally published, and all of them are traditionally published in hardcover with jackets. I've been very lucky that way. And they are all available as ebooks. But the print sales far surpass that for, we are trying to get kids off screens. And books are, the quickest way to do that. And the pictures, the illustrations are at least half of that experience. And a laptop, an iPad, doesn't matter how big of it doesn't do that, nor does it do the physical page turn, which is a bit of an art form in picture book writing, and probably even more so illustrating itself. So.
Awesome. And I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents because I can. And it's one sentence. Video didn't kill the radio star. There's room for all the formats.
theater is not
Yep.
dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
And another question. These people are captive. Come on. Yep.
I was just thinking, as you're all reading from previous works and your new work, are you thinking, oh, maybe I should have done this different, or do you just read it for what it is, or are you always rethinking?
So the question is, when you're reading your own work at readings, do you edit while you're reading it?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I did. Yeah, definitely.
Mine says Sarah looked at her watch. I
Yeah.
changed. Looked is a boring verb.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's still in a book of mine. I had checked her watch,
Yeah.
and there were other edits I made.
Yeah.
But basically, the story was what you heard is what's here.
Yeah.
You're just going to see some things that I would take out now.
Yeah, a friend told me a book is never finished. It's only submitted or
Exactly.
only published or only,
Mm-hmm.
abandoned.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. I think the reason for that is because we evolve as writers and we get better, right? And then you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, this is crap, right? And then you want to fix it. So, and it's just natural. But yeah.
This is my most recent, and I read it more or less straight. But last night I did a reading from the previous book, and I left some stuff out and rejigged some things. Yeah. And the older the book is, the more I'm likely to make
On the
new,
fly.
yeah, to do changes on the fly, or to actually get my iPad out and put a new version out there rather than read what's on the page.
So a writer is always a writer, even when they're reading.
Or always an editor.
Exactly.
Shannon?
I'm a reader and a proofreader, and Mel, you said close something, and you meant open.
Oh, did I? Thank you.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Yeah, that might have been a misreading, or that could have been wrong. Yeah. I was also editing a lot as I read, too, like you should see. But thank you. Yeah.
Any further questions for our panelists? Yep.
Self-published or traditional published?
So we're asking for a commentary on self-publishing versus traditional publishing.
I
It's a commentary, yeah.
What are you?
Oh, I'm both. Yeah, I'm both. Yeah,
Did you
and I
did
like
you want to
both.
share why? Yeah.
I was traditionally published in the beginning, so I had a six-year contract with my publisher, and actually they got very ill and unfortunately had to close. So I just released some of them and self-published the other, like myself. Yeah. So you know what? I actually don't mind it. I don't. You know, I love being traditionally published, and I have audiobooks that are traditionally published as well and stuff. But I do like being able to have the control of doing what I want to do with the cover and things like that. When I was traditionally published, I didn't have a say, and that was okay. But as an author, you kind of have a visual of what your cover should look like, and when the graphic designer sends you something and it isn't anything that you thought it was, and you're only allowed to give a little bit of input. So, but I think that I've really enjoyed both. I have, yeah, and I would do both. I would go back to tradition, but I do enjoy self-publishing as well.
I am traditional all the way because I'm a fire and forget guy. I'm really, really bad at follow-up for anything but writing. I love writing, and I hate anything administrative or paperwork or anything like that, and I would not do it well.
I'm 99% traditional. The only self-published thing that I've done is the nonfiction book I wrote about supernatural. She wasn't kidding when I said it's an obsession of mine, and I did that for a number of different reasons. But I have a lot of friends that are hybrid, or that only do self-publishing, or that only do traditional publishing, and I don't think that there's any one set path or one right way to do it, because I think different books can succeed better in different avenues depending on what they are or what your market is. And if you're an author trying to decide, should I go the traditional route or should I go the self-publishing route for this particular project, I tend to think it comes down to a question of how much control you want, how much time you have, and how much money you're willing to spend. And depending on how those slide will guide you if this is a project that maybe would be best served from a self-publishing effort, or maybe be best served from a traditional submission.
I'm considered a hybrid author. I've been writing for decades and was collecting novels in my hard drive because I spent from year 2000 to year 2011 trying to get an agent. Over a decade of query letters, hundreds across New York, going to writers' conferences, pitching them, and nobody wanted my books. So I went independent, and I incorporated my own business. I got a logo, and I built my company, and I paid for advertising, and I sold millions of books as an independent author, and was pitching in Hollywood, and got a movie deal without an agent. Then they called me, and I signed. And I signed because the agent said, here's what I can do for you. I can get you into Barnes & Noble, front placement, front shelf. I can get you this, I can get you that, and your advance is this much. And so hours later, a contract came through, and I signed it. So now I have multiple books traditionally published, but about once or twice a year, I still put out my own self-publish. I still indie publish to my readers, because I've found that traditionally publishing books is a lot slower than when I was indie. As an indie author, I put out 6 books a year. A book I would write in January would go to my editor in February, March, but that would come out by the end of the year. As I'm working on another book in March, and another one in June, and another one in October, it would be this kind of, I could do what I want. I had a cover designer in Denmark. I just ran my business so well, and I had a lot of fun doing it. So I really enjoy independent publishing and prefer it. That being said, lately I'm seeing some things that are coming through that traditionally publishing is going to be bigger for me. So I'm loving both, and very happy with both.
By comparison, for traditional, for Shadow Mountain, which is a mid-sized publisher in the States, the things we are saying yes to right now will be coming out in fall of 2021. So that's how long it takes. We've got a lot of, those slots are already full. The schedules are already built, and you need that much lead time for production and marketing and sales. So that's the time component. If you want to do 6 books, I can't do 6 books a year. I can do 6 books from 6 different people, but if that's your path, then self-publishing and independent publishing is a much better option if you want to control your time.
Well, I had read the best way to promote yourself is to write another book. So I wanted to write another one. And when I was finished it, I sent it out and write another one and keep doing that. And no, there wasn't any publishers that wanted to talk to me about it. And now it's been almost a year because I'm waiting for 3 books in the queue from multiple publishers. And I was supposed to have one out in September, but it just got delayed. So I'm just like, oh my goodness, I want to write faster, I want more books. But
Because your readers are waiting for that.
they're waiting. I just got another message on Facebook yesterday. Where's another book?
Well,
Get used to it.
you're trained your readers to
I have.
expect.
And now they're getting
Another
upset with
book.
me and
And that's exactly
tapping
it.
their foot, looking at their watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Traditional, but you want all of doing your own, though.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Because you're signed on with traditional.
I can do what I want. No, part of my contract is I can release a book a month if I wanted. No one can stop me. My agent and I have an understanding. I'm considered hybrid. The only thing I can't touch is my Sarah Roberts series is optioned with a publisher. And so they have the rights to do what they want until there's a deadline. And so there's certain things I can't play with. But I could write a new book and do what I want with it. I could send it to my agent, or I could just say, sorry, you don't get this one, and just send it to my editor and go to Amazon. And she's, I don't get that one. So, but I have a catalog, so she's quite happy with my story. Sorry, please.
No, I have little to add because I think I've commented about picture books, but picture books traditionally are even slower because there is the illustrator component. So when I submit to an agent who then tries to sell it to an editor, I submit text only. It's a Word document of typically 500 or fewer words, and they buy that, and then they shop for an illustrator, and they choose the illustrator, usually with some input and conversation with me about styles, and even sometimes we're down to these 3, what do you think, because I've proven myself not to be a psycho most of the time. I think, but so picture books now would be coming out probably 2023. Yeah, so because the illustrators are typically backed up by about a year if they have any track record, so you have to book into that. Yeah, and you share, it's not a lucrative field because you share royalties, and the illustrators get bigger advances than the authors do. So a lot of agents are a little reluctant to take on picture book author. Yeah, and it's highly competitive because everybody thinks they can write a picture book because we can all write 500 words, right?
They're so hard.
I would never do it. I would never even try.
Any other questions? Keep them coming. Yep, you have another one?
This is for Jonas, although no one said how many books they've written in the series, but how do you keep it fresh and exciting to be in the 20th book or the 21st book?
It's so hard to answer that for me because it's such an organic process. It's very natural. For me, the characters grow with me like I live with them because they do live with me in my head. Sarah, I'll talk about Sarah, the main character. There's many, her boyfriend, her confidant, several other people in the stories that come in through each novel. With Sarah, I make sure I age her naturally. I make sure a lot of that happens. But she has an arc. And as each book ends, there was an attempt on her life in book 9, Killing Sarah, it's called. And then she's for half the book, she's not in it in the beginning. And my editor commented on that. You can't have a Sarah book and not have her in the first half. But there was a purpose to it, and I kept it the way it was, and it's really good. But so the point I want to make, though, is at the end of Killing Sarah, everything she went through emotionally in that book, I bring into book 10 because she actually thought the wrong person killed her, and she went after that person, who tried to kill her, and she went after that person. And when she found out she'd made a mistake, she was devastated, actually shattered to the point where she didn't think she could continue doing what she does. And in book 10, it starts with her deciding to leave and quit. She can't. So every book moves emotionally to the next one, and what has that character learned? How have they evolved? And how do I feel if I was in their shoes? I jump in their head. If I was in her shoes, how I would be rocked to my knees for what I just did. So I'm going to make sure that I convey that in book 10. And in book 11, it's called The Redeemed, because in book 11, she redeems herself for what she did in book 10 because of what she thought in book 9. So I keep going, if that makes sense. And it continues on. Every story has it's like Criminal Minds, where they're all the same characters, but you have a different bad person or villain to take care of. Well, every book is a standalone in that regard, but the characters evolve in each story. And there are times, and I do this on purpose, there are times in, say, book 14, I'll refer to when she broke her ankle in book 9, and in book 10, she's limping. In book 17, I'll refer to an incident in book 5. If you're going to read the series from the beginning to the end, the readers have found they love that because it's a true history in her mind of who she is. I don't just write you a book and show you a new bad villain and we deal with it and we go to the next one now. No, it's a real person, and often my reader, well, I know it's fiction, but I treat it like she's real. And I feel in my mind she is, Sarah and her friends. And I just find that my readers really value that. So other than that, I think that's the best I can offer. And I guess my last comment was, it will be as she evolves in each story and as she deals with something new, she's dealing with a new villain with new knowledge from previous books that I make sure I add. And I make a lot of notes. Standalones I find so easy now because I can introduce a character, I can have things happen to them, and the book can end, and I'm done. I don't have to remember anymore. I can't believe how easy standalones are after I've gone through 20 with characters. I have to remember everything, even to the way she eats her eggs. I have it memorized. Even to the everything, her birth date, to everything is in my head right now because I've done it for 2 decades. So it's so important that you remember that as an author.
So it's not on database?
No, it's all in my head, and it's all in my head. I do have, I don't outline, and so, but I do have notebooks on. Oh, don't forget to do this. Oh yeah. And when I do some research on certain topics, I'll have lots of notes on that, and it'll be titled under like the book called The Chase, Sarah Roberts' book called The Chase. I'll have all my notes for that. And so if I'm like, oh, what happened? I can flip back and, oh, yeah, that was in The Chase. Oh, I remember when she did that. And then I can continue typing. So I do have those kinds of references. But no, I basically have Sarah and everyone. I could sit down without any notebooks and just write another book with Sarah and not get anything wrong. I do rely a lot on memory, which could be, and it is a mistake. I've made several in the series, and readers caught them. And I had to go back and make an edit. And it was a tragic scenario. But so... Hope that helps.
You had a question?
Yes, for the Sarah Roberts series, you said in 2011 that suddenly a publisher approached you.
Oh, no, 2016
Oh, 2016.
was when I got an agent,
A-
and she knew where to sell it.
Okay.
And 2 hours later, she'd already emailed the ebook to the the acquisitions editor. And the acquisitions editor is a speed reader and had read more than half of it in an hour and called her back and said, I want it. And she called me back 2 hours later and said, I've sold it. Here's if you want, this is what they're talking about as an advance. It was about a week later when I got the contract. It was a deal memo, not the long, yeah.
For the agent part, how did the agent approach you? Like, where were you? Like,
I was in Los Angeles. I was in Hollywood pitching. I was going to different studios, and I was pitching with a company called Brian Graydon Media. Brian Graydon used to run MTV, and anyway, Brian Graydon had, one of his assistants had read the Sarah Roberts series in ebook from Amazon and said, that's your next bestseller. You need to turn this into a movie. And so they contacted me when I was in Italy, and I flew to Hollywood to meet with them. And so I was mingling with writers at a writer's party on a Friday night in Hollywood, and almost all the writers were agented writers. And I had at the time written 20 books or something, and I had my business card, and I presented it. Oh, who's your agent? And I said, well, I don't have one. And after we discussed accomplishments and how many books I'd sold, and that I was here pitching in Hollywood, and I might have a deal for a movie, and and people didn't believe I didn't have an agent. And that's when they said, well, I'm telling my agent about you. You need an agent. And somebody said, no, I'm going to tell him so I had multiple emails the next morning from agents who said, we would like to represent you. So anyway, I said, well, why would I go with an agent? I'm already at this stage in my career. And, well, because I can offer you this. And so I said, really, I need to see some kind of proof. I tried for agents for a decade, and now you want in? So it was, and they came back, one agent in particular said, I can actually sell you today. Come on. And they did. They actually sold it within 2 hours. And it was an incredible deal. Unheard of today. So I'm very happy. Thank you.
Any further questions? We still have time.
You considered taking art classes to kind of bypass the whole finding an artist?
No, I mean, I would love to. I mean, I do think that's an important question, anyways. As I think there's something. I've started doing yoga again recently, and they talk about something like coming to it with a beginner's mindset, and the importance of coming to your craft or your creative place with a beginner's mindset. And I've been thinking about that in terms of writing, and I know a lot of people will pick up an instrument or because sometimes you do forget the ability to play. And really, I mean, the luxury of playing with words. And when you were a kid, before you're concerned about agent and agenting and editing and how many books sold and what everybody else was doing and rankings, you wrote because you wrote, right? And I think, so I sometimes think of going to doodling and like that. But ultimately, picture book magic, I mean, there are tremendously talented author illustrators, but for me, the picture book magic happens like it's a delayed collaboration between words and images. It's not a collaboration in the traditional sense. I have no contact with any of the illustrators of my book. That's how the traditional world works. And he or she will submit dummy sketches to the editor. The editor will send them to me. I'll give some feedback, and if she agrees with it, she'll put together, put it all in a big package and send it back to the illustrator. So my Sloth to the Rescue book was supposed to be out this spring, but they wanted some changes to the art. The art's tremendous. I've seen it. But when the art works, it surpasses my vision as a writer. And I think I've been tremendously lucky with all of my picture books. The art my visions would be literal, but there's a whole other level of storytelling in there. And that's where the magic happens, I think.
If I can just, because I'm a comic book guy, in almost all comic book creators started out as writer-illustrators. Because it's, the 12-year-old kid wants to make his own comic book, right? And once they start getting close to professional levels, then they will be nudged by editors. No, really, you're better at writing than drawing. It's, you just spend your time writing. That's your comparative advantage, as they say in economics. And if you write 3 books as opposed to write and draw 1, the result will be much better. And the same thing for people who are better at drawing. It's just, do where your strengths lie. And some people's strengths are writing and some people's strengths are drawing. And once in a long, long time, as you said, there are people who are both, but that's really rare.
You have to learn as much about the art as you have to learn about the writing. It's a life's work.
Yeah.
I know I've asked 2 questions, and I just make one last comment, then I'll shut up for sure. You must know the work of Terry Pratchett, one of my favorite, and also that he died of Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's. And of course he had continuing characters and stories that kept weaving together. And in his last 2 or 3 books, a theme in his stories of something hidden inside a person, a sort of demon, a devil, had came out more and more, and he tried to resolve these ideas in his 3 series of stories that he had in his last books. I guess it's for all of you really, but maybe mostly for Jonas in the sense that you're living with this character, you're married to this character. What happens when you get closer to the end? I love Pratchett's work. I don't think he quite succeeded at the end, smart as he was and loving and everything else. He didn't quite manage to put his characters into the grave with him to finish their stories.
The end of Sarah will be when I die. I'm planning on at least 50 books in the series. I'm on book 21, and I have often told my readers she will never go away. And if she has to, by age progression alone, she is having a baby, and I've already got her baby planned out for future series.
What happens to you when you're not her voice? What if you suddenly get early onset Alzheimer's, a stroke?
Right, that's when it stops. That's just, that's,
So for your readers,
and so it goes. And so it
Uh,
goes.
Agatha Christie wrote the last Hercule Poirot story long before she died, and it was just kind of sitting in her back drawer for when the time came.
What about the Marple one? Did she write?
I think the Marple, I don't know the story of the Marple one, I'll just say that.
Interesting. I guess in a sense that both answer my question.
Well, and Stephen King's The Dark Tower was a similar kind of thing where he had written the first 4 books and there were large year gaps in between, and then he was in a terrible car accident and nearly died. And this is probably not good for me to admit, but my first thought was, what happens to the tower? Like who's going to finish the story? But clearly Stephen King felt the same way, because when he recovered, the first thing he did was he wrote the last 3 books of that series just back to back to back, because he's like, I can't not finish the story, and it was too close. I was too close to losing it and dying and not finishing the story. Now he obviously has stayed with us much longer, and knowing that, I wish he had taken more time and edited book 7 down, just a little. But that sense as writers, yeah, we do feel that these characters and these stories that we've created and that we've told, if they are undone and unfinished, there is that sense of what happens to the tower, what happens to Sarah, what happens to the story if somehow I can't finish it, and it's a risk we take, but that's part of the journey.
And let's add one more thing. Things may change for me in my future. I might slow down with Sarah. I can tell you this, after book 17, 18, 19, they were harder for me to write because I was burning out a little with Sarah, because I was writing so much of her world. I decided to finish book 20 and get it out, and I left book 20 with every book has an afterword in my work. And in the afterward, I told the readers that I was taking an indefinite hiatus from Sarah, which would include a year or 2. They're not used to that. And ever since Sarah has been published, I've released 2, 3, or up to 6 per year for the last 6 years. And so anyway, I am taking a break. The last one came out in May last year. And so we're at 14 months since the Sarah book. It's the longest it's ever happened. I am bringing out 21, and I will continue with her. But I did need a break personally. So it does take its toll on the author at times.
Yeah, I hate to say it, Pratchett's last few, it's not good to try to do the grand conclusion when you're suffering from growing dementia.
But the last 3, I guess, were
Yeah, and trying to do a grand conclusion when your brain is not at a top speed is not a great.
And I think too, just to add to that, when you were writing these series or these trilogies or whatever, even just standalone novels, we're not just writing the books, we're also thinking of you all too and what you're expecting from us. So that plays into it as well. Yeah.
James?
writing a series, and something happened, would you want your series to be concluded on your behalf by someone else, or would you prefer that that's it, you're done, so your series is done?
I'm done, series done. I would never want someone to try to write in my voice. And
I
it may
totally agree.
it may happen. I know it has in the past, but personally, I have we all have a unique voice. I write what I like to read. And I want lots of action, lots of dialogue, things happening in every paragraph, always moving forward, minimal description, minimal exposition. I just love it constantly moving, very short chapters and lots of pace and tension, filled with emotion. And I put that on the page, and I'm getting goosebumps when I'm typing it. I just don't think anyone could emulate me and my voice exactly, or even close enough to do justice. Because here's the thing: a reader within a couple of books, 2 to 3, will grow to trust you. And once the reader trusts you, you have them for life.
That's right.
I have readers that message me and say, I am a reader for life, whatever you put out. It's my voice that they're drawn to, my style. You send out a book with my name on it that isn't my voice, I have done them a disservice.
Exactly.
I may be in a grave and can't help that, but I would like that to not happen. And I will. In each book I give, each Sarah book, it does end in a way that it could stop. I do that too.
There are very few examples of it actually happening well. Brandon Sanderson did a reasonably good job of ending Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. I can't think of any others, but I know that there are efforts ongoing, and it's not, especially when someone dies unexpectedly and leaves some books waiting to be finished. I certainly understand the inclination to do something about that, and maybe it's possible. It just hasn't been done much. Yeah, do you think that the... But because I'm a comic book guy, it happens in comic books all the time, right? Okay, you're off the series, someone new's there. And Batman, nobody is ever going to stop publishing Batman. And if the current writer goes to do something else or gets hit by a bus, there's going to be someone who's writing Batman the next month and who's probably going to do a decent job. Different probably, but...
If there's no other questions, I have one bigger question I'd like to bounce off of you guys, just to wrap things up.
Do it.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So, what I would like to know from each of you is, outside of money, because we know this is a business and you want to get money from your writing, but outside of money, what do you get from your writing, and what do you want your readers to get from your writing? Big question.
I'll chime in here. Empathy. For me, something Lisa said last night at the library was to a new writer, and I can't say verbatim, I think, but it was advice to a new writer: quit. And if you can't, then do the work. Thank you. I could never quit. I've been writing since my first short story was when I was 10 years old. And I still remember it to this day, even scenes in my mind. And I could never quit. So I get I get a lot of emotion from writing. I have been able to purge a lot. I had a very horrible experience in 2008. It was a divorce. And I was able to write a book called The Threat, about a woman hunting this guy, and it was really cool for me, and it healed. I was able to I put a lot of my pain and a lot of my issues and a lot of the things that happened to me through my books, and what happens is I get a lot back from what I write, and I really love that. And then my readers get a lot from it too, and they've often expressed how they were crying throughout the book, or goosebumps, gasping. You have given me such a roller coaster of emotions and blah, blah, blah. Then they send me Christmas cards. They send me postcards. I get gifts all the time from my readers. We love each other. And it's very moving. If you're on my Facebook page, every week or 2 or 3, you will see new pictures of new gifts from my readers. It is a very emotional journey and connection I have with my readers. And in some of the classes this weekend, I'll be discussing that and showing some of the gifts I've gotten. I have them with me. So what do I get from it? I get such a wonderful, loving connection with my readers. And I get to chase and kill and hunt people in thrillers. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Jonas nailed it. I write because I have to. I mean, it's there. It's, aside from everything else, I write because it's there and I have to, and I can't sleep, and there's voices in my bloody head, and, I'm going to the doctors, and he's like, you're not crazy, and it's just there. It's who I am. I write books that I want to pull the reader into a different world, and that's why I write historical. I want to bring them somewhere else for a little bit, and I want to make them feel. And I always try to give a little bit of a message in every book that I write. That Lakota Honor, I chose the message that don't judge a book by its cover. Basically, just because somebody looks daunting and scary, it doesn't mean that's who they are. And that's why I write. I have this gift. And I thank God for it every day. But if I can touch one person with my writing, then that's all I ask.
I make myself laugh, and sometimes, every day I surprise myself with the stories that I'm writing, and sometimes come up with really cool things, and sometimes things come out of the blue. I like thinking about characters and about issues and so on for a long time. I wouldn't understand the world if I didn't write. I, just like everybody has said, I can't not write. I will do it. I write 7 days a week pretty much, and the days that I don't, I feel kind of strange. If something interrupts, something comes up and I can't write. Or this morning I was writing, even though I'm here. Probably I won't do any writing on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday because of the schedules that I have, and that's going to feel real strange by Tuesday.
One of the things that I get from writing is the chance to remind myself that it is possible, that I can do hard things. Growing up, I had believed that I wanted to be a writer, and I was going to be a writer, and I was going to be like the youngest person on the New York Times bestseller list, and you just watch. And then I had a lot of self-doubt creep in to the point where I stopped writing for a number of years through college and even beyond, because I felt that I wasn't good enough to be that kind of writer, and that I felt that not only that I couldn't write, but that I shouldn't write, which was a very dangerous line to trip into. And so I write to prove to myself that I can do it, and beyond that I should do it, and I am doing it. And it's a chance for me to quiet that voice in the back of my head that says, yeah, other people are really better at this. And I'm like, no, I'm doing it, and I'm good at it, and it's okay for me to say that I'm good at it. And that's something really, really personal that I get from the experience of writing. What I hoped that my readers get, or what I hope to be able to share, I think a lot about a quote that my friend said one time about books. He said, books are the souvenir of the journey. And that's why I don't want to ever sell the books in my library, because I went on this journey, and the book that I have is the souvenir of the experience. And I hope that the readers and the people who go on this journey with me through these characters and through these stories feel like it was a journey well worth taking, and that they want to remember it, and that they want some souvenir of it, that they want to revisit it.
Just one more thing before. Paul Simon said, I write songs to impress girls. And one reason I write is to show off. Not necessarily for girls, but just to show off. And that should not be ignored as an impulse.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I might be the only person on this panel who doesn't feel compelled like I have to write, and that almost makes the voice in my head feel like an imposter. I teach full time, and I feel it's a fulfilling job. I'm with words all the time. I teach high school English, but I do feel I'm a more whole person when I write. I feel more me, and I think, like Jim says, it is a way of helping me make sense of the world, and it helps me be a participant in this world and not just blink and have things pass you by. So when I have my notebook on me, whether that's literally or figuratively, I am observing the details about how people are sitting here. I am taking in the moment, and my brain isn't somewhere else. And that, to me, is what I get for living a full life by trying this darn hard writing thing. And when you write picture books, kids think you're a rock star. So, I will say that too.
So I want to thank Lisa for justifying my home library for me in yet another way.
Keep them off.
Sorry?
Oh, just that my friend had said that books are the souvenir of the journey. And so because I don't know about the rest of you, but I have
Marie Kondo.
we all have a lot of books in the house. Let's just be real. And that it almost kind of goes back to your comment about the difference between ebook and paper book, is that there's something about this that is the souvenir of the journey. And so when I go in the library at my house, I don't have time necessarily to reread all the books that I want to read, because there's new books coming out every day. But I go in the library and I look and I go, yeah, I remember that. Oh, I remember that time we went to Mordor. Oh, yeah, I remember that time we flew dragons. And oh, yeah, I remember that time I cried with so-and-so. And just seeing the book on the shelf is the reminder of the journey.
Books are more than just wallpaper. So thank you all so much for coming to our guest of honor readings today to kick off When Words Collide. Big round of applause for our guests.